If there's one thing Ragnarok has in spades, it's creatures. Big creatures, small creatures, massive creatures, creatures of the sand and ocean variety, and of course, brand new creatures. Creatures which, ladies and gentlemen, I am planning to tame, but not just for the sake of having them, I want to put them to use. That's right, not only is my goal for this series to tame all 122 tameable creatures on this map, excluding the Pyromane and Dreadmare because cringe, I want to do some really stupid things that happen at the back of my mind for a really long time. Like for example, sending 100 insects to try and fight a Giga to find out who would win. Raising an army of shoulder pads to see if they could replace a cave mound, but also find the dumbest way to knock out creatures in ARK. If that sounds compelling to you, make sure you subscribe and leave your own suggestions in the comment section for what sorts of experiments I should conduct. Though for today, our goal is going to be simple. Set ourselves up for all these crazy projects by taming a whole bunch of farming dinos in order to build our base of operation. I mean, if you want to build an army 100 men strong, you're going to need a lot of space and you're going to need a lot of resources to make that happen. But just like any good story, it only makes sense to start at the beginning. Day 1 on Ragnarok, spawning at Viking Bay, I was immediately greeted with a brand new questing system. Completing these challenges is going to give you access to the new skill tree, as long as you purchase the Lost Colony DLC pre-order, which I did before spawning. Though it was a bit silly of me to expect to have access to these features only because I spent money on them, because you see, the game wanted me to kill not 1 but 3 of this list of creatures, all of which are powerful predators. So I set my sights at a more manageable goal, like hitting level 3 to open this white drop that spawned right next to me.
Hey yo, 5 spears and a torch? I'll take that.
Now truth be told, I don't know this map very well. I played a little bit of Ragnarok back in ASE, but really I spent the vast majority of my 1000 hours on Extinction. So the matter of base location was a bit tricky for me, seeing as how none of what was around me seemed familiar. So for now, I did what I had to in order to equip myself with a basic amount of resources to be able to get started on a base as soon as I found a tempting location. The levels were pouring in, and eventually I settled for a small spit of land right by the bay. This is going to be the rock that I built my church on, even if said church is currently not very big. But hey, Rome was not built in a day, so all that was left to do was continue to expand. By the time night fell upon me, I was fully set up with my starter box protecting me from the cold temperatures. But even said cold would not stop me from wanting to explore, immediately stumbling upon something awesome.
Now here's a test to see if a map is good or not. You can always judge it by whether or not there's something behind the waterfall. And there is... My god.
Okay, I might be a little out of my league here. I was thinking like a little surprise, not all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can officially conclude that Ragnarok is in fact a good map. Not only does this place house a decent amount of metal at the back of it, but the red bushes over here, yeah, you can harvest them for organic polymer. I'm not pulling your leg here when I say this, but I literally didn't even know these things existed in the game. Anyway, after filling my pockets with about as much metal as was reasonable to harvest when using stone tools, I decided to head back to base to smelt it into ingots, being a little confused about how insanely bright it was despite it being in middle of the night. But that didn't bother me none, because I had a lot of work to do, like running away from this Allosaurus that was currently in the process of completely taking over my spawn area. Guess that quest was not as far of reach as initially expected, but that's assuming I can actually kill it, which at present I could not. So for the time being, I decided to hunt some prey that is a bit closer to my own size, and I was also ready to tame my first creature. This level 140 Moschops asked for the humble price of 1 rare flower to become my friend, and as fate would have it, that is something I currently had sitting at my base, making this my official first out of 122 tames of the series, Mochi the Moschops. Turns out that was an absolute jackpot tame to start off my journey. Mochi was insanely proficient at harvesting a whole bunch of things, from bushes to trees to even trilobites. With her help, I would be able to make a lot more progress than on my lonesome. One thing she wasn't though was a fighter, so even though I finally had the means of harvesting more efficiently, she would not be able to do anything about the family of Allos that was currently slaughtering everything in my neighborhood. For now, I tried to make sure I only harvest resources that are a safe distance away from these things, eventually collecting enough to build my first smithy and subsequently get access to metal tools, which I would use to harvest the remaining metal nodes in the poly cave because my metal pick would yield a lot more ores than my previous one. Now, since this challenge is not limited to 100 days for once, I was not only allowed to, but encouraged to take some time to make myself comfortable. I decided to build a bridge to make getting to the mainland easier for myself and Mochi, and the reward was right around the corner. Okay, finishing the quest had nothing to do with building that bridge, but I was now one step closer closer to unlocking my first set of skills. I just had 2 more modules to complete, so that is exactly what I went out to achieve, though the last part of my quest tree was to tame a creature that I could not find anywhere outside of Allo City, so I decided to build myself a raft in order to explore new lands, and tame something I would, just not what I initially had in mind. 140! Hold up. I think you're thinking what I'm thinking. If I think the same thing, then I think this can work. All it takes is a little bit of finesse. Watch this. Dang it! Almost enough finesse. Well, I mean, no time as the present, I suppose. I'm a flippin' genius. Oh my god. We can bring it home. We can bring it home. It's a 140. I would love some prime meat for that, but I might not have time to do it. You over there. Come back. Yo. I have 150? Do not mind if I do. Nothing like trying to bowl out the first PT for its height and the second one for its meat, just for both of them to be absolute taming material. Now, taking to the skies is obviously going to have to happen at some point, but with a map as massive as Ragnarok, sooner is definitely better. Since these 2 PTs were such high levels, I went around desperately looking for some prime meat to gain better taming effectiveness. Babies were the obvious food of choice, though let's just say that this compy did not have a lot of meat on its bones. I had to beef it out with a carbon nemesis because this was the only parent I could find whose offspring could actually provide enough meat to tame both of my PTs. And after a long and arduous fight, I came out victorious. Fighting baby turtles on a beach, man, I'm such a hero. After delivering the food, I immediately headed back to that other stretch of land where I was still looking to tame something to complete my quest. This level 20 Lystra was absolutely going to fit the bill, so I fed it a few mayho berries to complete the mission before saying goodbye. Permanently. Yeah, this is not tame number 2. By the way, as part of the challenge, if I only have 1 specimen of a creature and it dies, I'm gonna have to get a new one. All 122 creatures need to be alive by the end of the series. Now I could finally put my first skill points to use, and I'm gonna be real, Hot-Blooded just seems so much more useful than any of the other first nodes in the tree that it wasn't even a choice. So an additional 300% health regen it is. My PTs tamed up shortly after, marking tame number 2 out of 122. Obviously, I was itching to take to the skies in order to find a bigger, more permanent base location, which is when it dawned on me. No! Oh, it's the wrong saddle. My level is way too low for the PT saddle. Yeah. Oh god, 38. What level am I? 33. Dang it. Okay, also I'm starving. I should fix that. Yeah, truth be told, I was not used to my level being the limiting factor to my ability to do things. It was time to take Mochi out to grind some XP. Okay, yeah, I'm kidding. I was looking for creatures that actually could do some killing, and when I got jumped by a pack of raptors, I found an opportunity. Its leader was level 150, a max level specimen. All I had to do was get rid of its entourage before beginning to knock it out. Now, as I was looking for more prime babies, I spotted an Argentavis on my beach. Yeah, okay, Ragnarok, spawning an RG in a beginner zone? That is just taunting me with things I can't have right now. Not to mention that it was right next to one of the allos that have been terrorizing me for days now. Okay, here's a painful lesson in only because it's max level doesn't mean it's good. Thanks to the Vanilla with Sprinkles mod, which is a very ironic name considering how much it actually alters the vanilla experience, I was able to see the exact point distribution of any creature, revealing a whopping 44 points into oxygen. Welcome to tame number 3 out of 122, I suppose. Not exactly what you want in a raptor, but hey, Rafaela would still come home with us by virtue of me already having a saddle for her. Now, she did fall in the water during transport, but let's be real, she's probably not gonna drown when she has 44 points in oxygen. Also, apology for the video looking so washed out right now. Usually on other maps, when visibility gets really bad due to fog, you can just use the r.volumetricfog0 command to fix that. But on Ragnarok, it somehow has the opposite effect, probably something to do with Unreal 5.5 and how the fog is baked into the map itself. Anyway, I realized it eventually after taking Raffi out in a boat's tour to climb a mountain. Now, the one item I wanted more than anything else right now was crystal. Without crystal, I could not make a spyglass, and that was something I felt I was lacking for a few days already. Unfortunately for me, crystal was absolutely nowhere to be found. In fact, I made the trek out to a faraway island that didn't only not have crystal, but it actually had absolutely nothing else on it either. I did spot a few obsidian nodes on the way back, and I mean, dude, you can find the weirdest things at the weirdest locations on this map. Just like this Anki beefing it out with a level 25 T-Rex. Seeing an opportunity for some easy XP, I decided to help the little guy out, accidentally biting into to it once or twice in the process, but I mean, hey, accidents happen. Well, at least that's what I thought, but neither it nor its partner really found it all that funny. The annoying part being that said partner was level 145. It was already quite bloody by the time it showed up, so I decided to help it out so that I could regenerate some HP in peace. I finally found an opportunity for Crystal in a nearby cave. It was all glowy and mysterious, and I did eventually find Crystal, just that was being defended by a level 260 spider. Needless to say that I ran for my life like the beach mob that I am, and alas, I remained without a spyglass. Determined not to leave this mountain without some kind of victory, I decided to consult Dodo decks on whether or not I would be able to knock out this 145 Anki. And I mean, I did have enough tranks, I just wasn't sure it was going to survive the process. But thankfully, it did. It was at this point that it dawned on me that I actually had no good way of transporting this creature off the mountain, so the next best thing I could do was leave its render distance and come back to pick it up once I had either a cryopod or an Argentavis. The former does require crystal to craft, so fat chance there. But rest assured knowing that this Anki was going to end up being tame number 4 out of 122. Back at base, Mochi and I went right back to work because it was time for some upgrades. A fresh set of chitin armor was well overdue for me at that point, as was my first PT saddle. But I didn't want to just ride the PTs I had, I wanted to raise a baby. The imprint bonus would make it a lot more usable when it comes to not only speed, but also weight. But before I could raise a family, I had to make sure the neighborhood is a bit safer. Which obviously was the parents' job, so I took one of the PTs to lure the Allo away from my base to avoid an impending catastrophe. Rent prices about to go up in my area, but that's okay because I was not planning on staying anyway. That Allo is a level 140 by the way, so it was definitely on my list of creatures to tame. Speaking of which, I could definitely have used for an Oviraptor. Sadly, this one had an, tragic accident, so instead of painstakingly taming it with my PT's eggs, I had no choice but to adopt its child. As part of this challenge, I will count babies towards my total as long as they're an otherwise regular knockout tame. So this Oviraptor is tame number 5 out of 122. I also looted a reasonably useful blue drop before heading back to base to deliver the baby, but I was still missing some key resources. Next to gathering a bunch more hide for more saddles, I also robbed a family of beavers for their cementing paste before finally stumbling upon some crystal. Spyglass, here I come. The Oviraptor was all grown up by the time I came back, so I filled its inventory with a bunch of heavy resources to stop it from moving before setting it to wander so it would begin collecting eggs. Now I will be able to stockpile fertilized PT eggs without needing to babysit them all the time, using that freedom to begin some gardening. It was also then that it dawned on me that I was still 6 levels short of even being able to craft cryopods, so I guess my Anki was going to stay on that mountain a bit longer. Meaning for now, it was back to the Bob grind. I spent some time completing a new tree of quests that prompted me to deal a bunch of damage using spears, slingshots, and boomerangs. A fairly easy question to be honest, and I decided to put my newly acquired skill points into a little XP boost for my mounts. Oh yeah, the turtle I used my boomerang on to complete the quest, since it was already knocked out, I decided to tame it and actually had a pretty decent point distribution by virtue of it not having an oxygen stat. Welcome to the team, Barbara. Tame number 6 out of 122. A bit later, I spotted a beacon not too far away from my base, so I decided to hop on my PT to take a look at it, and just after picking it up, I realized I was really bad at exploring. Wait, did I just see that right? There was crystal next to my base this entire time? Well, granted, only got 2 pieces off it, but would have been enough for a spyglass. Oh, wait a second. Are those the legendary? Oh my god, they are! Oh my god, all this good stuff was right next to me this entire time. Yep, from hatchets to pikes to crossbows, had I done just a little more exploring on day 1, I could have had a lot of the tools that I painstakingly crafted myself. Now at that point, I was wondering how much more I was missing out on, so I decided to keep hunting for drops, getting surprisingly good items off of that, before finding a really cool looking ravine hiding, you guessed it, even more crystal. If any of you have already commented a bunch of coordinates on where to find crystal, I am so sorry. Anyway, after all the grinding I did, I was finally at the appropriate level to make a couple of cryopods at the nearby obelisk. So that is exactly what I did, meaning I could finally pick up my Anki from the mountain and yeah, oxygen and food dump. Either way, I cryoed the thing and headed back to base. Now despite the horrific stat distribution, this Anki was currently my strongest creature, and that realization was kind of sad. So in an attempt to fix that problem, I decided it was high time to tame that Allo. A simple gate trap was my tool of choice, and gamers, let's just say that things did not go according to plan. This does not appear to work. Go away, Stupego! God! I'm not here for you! I swear to God. Can you guys just eat the peg already? Oh my god, it's so annoying. Sort off! Wait. Potion? Oh my god, I did it. I did it. Now, obviously, I never tamed an Allo in quite this manner, so fully expecting to get eaten, I did not carry any of my tranks. I hurried back to base to grab my things before rushing over to the Allo just to find out that it was free. Listen, I know that dinos render in before structures, but I didn't think that taking a few steps away from it would mean that I'm out of render distance. But when I trapped it a second time, I finally realized what actually happened. Okay, this time, you're not gonna get out. I think I start to understand how it got out. It is literally surfing on its baby. This is so not fair. Bruh. Stop being difficult. Why are you board pass spinning? This is one of those situations, man. Well, I'm not sure if it's too stupid or too smart to get into the trap. Whatever the case may be, trapping it was no longer an option, so now I had to chase after the dang thing whilst it was torpo running. Needless to say that this was not the only dangerous creature around, so in the process, I end up getting eaten by its brethren. But there was no time for complaints, so after respawning, I grabbed my stuff and chased it down once more until it finally knocked out. Now, I was pondering on whether or not I should feed its own baby to it, but considering that allos are pack animals, getting 2 for the price of 1 might actually be very useful. Oh yeah, and also, the reason this gal is all glowy and blue is because of the S-Dinos mod that, full transparency here, I just forgot to remove. I decided to keep it on the server for now, but I'm not gonna treat S-Variants as their own species, so getting my hands on this S-Allo does count as tame number 7 out of 122. The only problem, I was not going to be able to ride it until level 67, and I was, well, lower than that. The best thing I could do now was take my strongest rideable creature to go out and get some more XP, which, as much as it sounds like a piss take, actually worked really well. At that point, my PTs had laid a few eggs, and I decided it was time to hatch them. Naturally, I picked the one with the best stats to become my trusty mount moving forward before disposing of the rest of them. And in a twist of sheer creativity, I decided to name my pterodon Terra. Terra was all grown up by the time sun had risen, and I would finally be able to take flight on my imprint and PT. And as you do with a hatchling, I decided to take her around the island to gather XP. Listen, this might not be a combat tame, but I'll be damned if I accept having to take a stamina break every minute and a half when traveling. And travel we did. Going for our first robbery at the nearby beaver colony was a great start until I noticed that one of the beavers we robbed was level 145. Obviously, having something that can farm wood is hugely beneficial, so after dancing around all the remaining Castros, who were definitely still mad at me for robbing them, I found a spot from which I could safely knock it out, until I got a little distracted and shot it one too many times, ruining its taming effectiveness. A mistake I could not afford to have happened with what I found next. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at a level 145 Griffin, the crown jewel of Ragnarok, arguably the best flying creature in the game and one that I was desperate to get my hands on. So I marked it down on the map and returned back to base in order to prepare for the tame. A long neck rifle would be absolutely necessary because I didn't want to run the risk of accidentally killing it via means of a volley of arrows. I also had a few spare skill points which I used to learn bonded taming, giving me 30% of an imprint on any creature I tame. And with that, I was ready to rectify my mistakes. Or at least so I thought. Unfortunately, the caster was not as stuck anymore as it once was, so I decided to move on to the Griffin immediately. And there it was. Now I know that this trap had betrayed me before, but truth be told, I could not come up with a better way of capturing it than via means of a gate trap. And gamers, if you thought this was going to be a troublesome taming process, you'd be right. Dude, where did he go? He was here like a second ago. Oh, he's hunting something. Come back! Oh, this is so bad. Oh, it's going just... Oh, God, it's just leaving. Come on. This is the wrong Griffin. This is not the Griffin I want. Where's the high level one? Oh, okay, there it is. Oh, God. No. What is that rubber band, dude? Yes, wait. Are you the... Yes! Son, get the hell out of here. 35 damage? Okay, I was not expecting that to be a problem. Hello, go. Alright. So sorry, Terra. What? You just got out? And you to not get out? I was shooting tranks. That's why I dealt so little damage. This would be a lot easier if I didn't have my PT out. No, come back, Terra! Don't go chasing that! Terra! You've got to be absolutely kidding me. So Terra is gone, which means my only way home is actually taming this thing. Talk about upping the stakes. The only thing left to do was pump this thing full of tranquilizers until it goes to sleep. I did make sure to keep a close eye on its health because griffins are surprisingly fragile creatures, but in due time... Yes! Finally! With how much HP? Are you serious? Wait, did I see that right? 19 points into 18 points into health. 39 to 8. Yeah, so if this initial stat distribution is anything to go by, I was not going to get the best Griffin to start off. But hey, a Griffin's a Griffin, so I spent some time hunting for prime meat in order to get it tamed. And while I was at it, I also made an attempt to help make the Pegomastics go extinct because I was sick and tired of them constantly stealing my lunch. Either way, the prime was acquired, the Pegos were hunted, and all that was left to do was wait. And once it was tamed up and ready to go, it was time for me to marvel upon those stats.
Alright, Zarvion. Welcome to the family. Yes, I can ride it without a saddle! What are the stats? 49 points into weight! 45 into oxygen! You're not an ocean creature!
23 into health and 26 into melee is diabolical.
And even with 49 points into weight, it only has 500. Alright, Zarvion, gonna make the best of it. Let's see if we can save Terra.
After pocketing my allo, Zarvion and I rushed on over to find Terra still fighting that wild griffin. The only way for me to keep her alive was constantly whistling her to fly away before beginning my aerial assault onto the enemy. And eventually, Zarvion got his first kill. Now, getting a griffin was quite the upgrade for my Pterodon. The unfortunate part was that I didn't have a spare cryopod for said PT and thus had to fly it home along with me. And that, my friends, was a lot more infuriating than I could have ever expected.
Terra, stop! God, you're so annoying. Terra? Terra! Stop! Oh my god, Terra!
Yep, because the baseline speed of a PT is faster than the baseline speed of a Griffin, Terra kept running into me, breaking my momentum for a dive bomb and, well, just breaking my momentum entirely, to be honest. Rest assured knowing that she would remain at base for the foreseeable future, but I was actually not done taming flyers yet, because you see, there are some things that Zarvion cannot do, like for example, carrying an Anki to go for a metal run. So my first course of action was finding not just one, but a whole bunch of orgies in order to eventually breed them. Obviously, not knowing Ragnarok all that well, I would have to go around exploring in order to even find out what sorts of creatures are found where, eventually stumbling upon the Highlands. And while the area was very beautiful, the same could not be said for the neighbor's base. A butt-ugly thatch hut was erected smack dab in the middle of this beautiful biome, and its owner was right around the corner.
Hey, who's there?
Wait, what?
Oh, hey.
What are you doing here?
I just kind of found myself here, and now I'm here, I guess.
So, this your place then?
Yeah, you want to come in?
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
And don't take this the wrong way. Why did you build your base next to a waterfall?
I don't know, it's really loud, to be honest, and I kind of regret that decision. I don't have any tames yet, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's, like, no animals around here, and it's not because I killed them.
No animals or anything else?
Yeah,
basically.
like, no trees. There's plenty of metal, which is great, but yeah, there's, like, no trees, and this is not because I've been farming. Like, this is, I'm really not as far as I should be, because there just, like, is not anything around here.
Wait, should we group up?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not gonna go on this journey alone. It was obvious that Brandon had a lot more trouble in his first few days on Ragnarok than I did, so I figured it was only fair to help him catch up. Thankfully, Griffins are two-seaters, and because he had nothing of value to bring with him, Zarvion had absolutely no trouble carrying the two of us around the map. We picked up a few drops on our way home, one of which had an Ascendant crossbow in it, before arriving at an empty home. Yeah, my tames had turned invisible, so I needed to relog in order to stop freaking out about my creatures being gone. No, only because there's two of us doesn't mean that my prime directive has changed. I was still looking for a flock of orgies, diligently setting my traps before catching them, just to be disappointed about the stats not too much later. I also found another 145 Anki while I was at it, and since my current one had no useful stats to speak of, I decided to pick it up as well. But taming right about anything in this area was a rather nerve-wracking task. Between stinging scorpions and vindictive vultures, there were a lot of things looking to ruin my tames. Which, let me be very frank with you guys, they really didn't need to be, because the creature itself was already ruining it by giving my RG 50 points into oxygen, marking this tame number 9 out of 122. But that doesn't mean that ARK was done piling up on my misery.
You gotta be kidding me! Dude! Oh my god! Literally the microsecond I put the trap away. I don't even want to tame it like that. Like, that's such a waste of a high level.
And so I didn't, though I did catch an Argentavis with a whopping 50 points in food, who ironically had the inherent food frail trait. Now, while I was busy spending my time collecting mediocre flyers, Brandon was off taming a Baryonyx, but I'm not gonna count that one until he brings it home in one piece. Short taming intermission to go dig up a great treasure map holding an Ascendant sickle before kidnapping a Castro on my orgy, because ladies and gentlemen, it was time to think about expansion. Obviously, any starter base is going to need creatures that can farm the 4 basic resources: wood, stone, metal, and thatch. thatch. And currently, we still needed creatures to cover all of these except for metal. Brandon was going for style points instead, bringing home the aforementioned Barry, which, while not providing the benefit of building our empire, does have 52 points in melee. I mean, it also doesn't have an oxygen stat, but that's still better than anything I've caught so far. Welcome to luck, tame number 10 out of 122. Hey, we're finally in the double digits. Catching all these garbage tier creatures was gonna be made easier with a 175% damage long neck rifle that I found in a purple drop though. It is worth mentioning that Brandon's addition, while not a farming tame, was very useful not only as a future caving mount, but also almost rivaling the power of my 2-woman Allo squad. Anyway, since you can't build a base on the back of a Baryonyx, I came back from the mountains having kidnapped a Dodec, covering the stone farming part of the equation. By which time the Castroides had tamed up, and of course, I named it Bober, marking tame number 11 out of 122. And I'm glad I did, because before the Dodec tamed up, Brandon had managed to get our Baryonyx killed, knocking us back down to 10 out of 122, but at least we're still in the double digits. We only made up the loss with a Dodec, which I named PB&J to become our new number 11 out of 122. Now at this point, our spit of land was becoming a bit crowded. Obviously, it was never intended to become our permanent base location in the first place, but since we have figured out metal, stone, and wood farming tames, we were more than capable of building our new empire anywhere we please. So Brandon and I decided to go out in search of a worthy location.
Remember when you said waterfalls are so loud though?
Why you say I can't hear you? The waterfall's so loud. The matter of base location was a surprisingly difficult one to solve. Ragnarok as a map is absolutely massive, featuring a vast variety of stunning areas begging to become your new home. So we searched. For hours, Brandon and I were flying every which way, in every which direction, in order to find the perfect space to settle down. Ladies and gentlemen, after much deliberation and a full, real-life day of farming and building, it is my esteemed pleasure to present to you Grizzly Hills. Located just out of range of the volcano biome, enjoying the gorgeous view of waterfalls ahead, this has become the actual foundation on which we'll build our empire. Outfitted with a massive workshop adorning crafting stations of vanilla and D+ varieties, a connected tower with a stunning panorama view of the surrounding area, and a massive, as of yet unfortified, wooden wall to keep wild creatures away. But our new home isn't finished yet. Not only are we missing a hatchery and breeding area, but some of you might have noticed the sad excuse for a greenhouse. Don't worry, I was not going to be making this entire thing off screen. I just figured that me hitting resource nodes for hours on end was not going to be very entertaining. While the design work might be finished, the actual functionality of the base is not there just yet. Our production and farming capabilities are currently extremely limited. Kibble is one thing we are definitely missing in order to tame most of the remaining 111 creatures, for which I absolutely need to build out this greenhouse. Now, I did farm most of the things I needed to make that happen. Plenty of crystal from the nearby volcano, and loads of cementing paste that I have stolen from the neighboring beaver colony. Wood and stone have also not been too much of a problem, though I will talk about the wood situation a bit later. One thing that has been a massive pain in the ass has been getting thatch. I'm gonna be real, guys, after spending the whole day building this base, I was sick and tired of hitting trees with my pickaxe for poverty amounts of thatch, meaning it was time to get a Megalosaurus. But not just any Megalosaurus, it needed to be a male specimen because only those possessed the horns necessary to farm that resource. For the time being, this level 90 would have to do, though trapping it with my standard billboard method was not working since it seemed to just walk right under them, meaning I'd be going with a standard bola and ascended crossbow approach. Bro tamed up very painstakingly considering I'm still using crops instead of kibble, but what was even more painful was seeing that he only gets like up to 15 thatch per tree. Yeah, not per hit, per tree. So a lot of the trees in this biome have absolute jacked for durability, even though I'm playing on 1.5x harvest with also 1.5x resource durability modifiers, meaning thatch might literally be the most in-demand resource I could possibly ask for at my new base. When I found a female 145 Megalosaurus, I did immediately decide to tame it so that I could eventually get myself a new one with an imprint bonus. Hopefully the additional melee damage is going to improve my yields, not with all her points in food though. Either way, it was still better than hitting trees with a pickaxe, so eventually I got the materials to finally start building my greenhouse. Oh yeah, also I just now realized that I forgot to mention fiber as one of the big resources you need alongside wood, stone, thatch, and metal. But since a sickle is almost as good as a tame, I didn't feel the need to get a fiber gathering creature specifically. Wait, when the heck did I get a dire bear? Might be Brandon's doing. Welcome to tame number 12 out of 122. And it actually would not be our last for the day, because even with the building and crop plots crafted, we still needed fertilizer to get the greenhouse going, for which we required. So you might be wondering why I'm collecting so much poop, when technically one dung beetle is completely enough to fertilize an entire greenhouse. That's because there's another resource they produce, which is oil. And oil has been a bit of a pain for me. I mean, I could make an oil pump, but the goal for Grizzly Hills is that it's completely self-sufficient.
So I will get an Achatina eventually as well, even though there is plenty of beavers just right over there where I can get thousands of cementing paste if I need it. But again, I want to be self-sufficient, so if I can produce both cementing paste as well as oil in my base, it's one less reason to have to leave. Okay, maybe self-sufficient was not the right term to use. Obviously, I can't gather homegrown metal or stones, but I think you get where I'm going with this. If there is a resource I can produce within my walls, I'm gonna want to do that. Now, to get a dung beetle, all I have to do is feed them some poop as a passive tame. The only problem was that the dookies of my dinos were not big enough to tame them in one feed, and the creatures around the volcano where the dung beetles reside had absolutely no intention of just letting me go through this process in peace. And while random wild creatures cannot harm dung beetles, my Argentavis certainly can. No! Oh, it hit the dung beetle. Dang it, man. Are they both mad at me now? Oh, they're both mad at me now. Come on. Oh, kinda gotta render. Yeah, call that a bit of a whoopsie. Now, eventually, I had the brilliant idea of grabbing the dung beetles and placing them atop the mountain where I was in no danger of being attacked by wild dinos, which worked perfectly to get tame number 13 out of 122. But you know where else I was in no danger of being attacked by wild dinos? My base. Yes, it took me an embarrassingly long time to remember that I could just take these things and bring them back home to tame rather than suffering through the pain of constant attacks. With the pack of dung beetles secured, there were just 2 more creatures I needed to finish my base proper: Achatinas and honeybees. You could make the argument that this entire greenhouse is optional anyway, because I could just save up for a bio grinder and get my kibble that way. But realistically, there will be times where I'm going to want to have access to the various food buff bestowing dishes of ARK, as well as sweet veggie cakes for my eventual herbivore army. So with a creature spawn map of Ragnarok on my second monitor, I headed out to get myself the bee's knees. And with an aggressively red sky following my every move, I eventually did stumble upon them. Oh god. Oh lord, okay. Why is there so many? What the hell? Oh my god, are those all queen bees? Oh my god. What the hell? Ragnarok certainly does keep surprising me. Yes, I'm under the impression that this flock of bees is meant to be distributed across this entire area, but because I've never been anywhere near this place, they all just spawned in at the same time. And that was just as well, because now I didn't need to run around from tree to tree in the redwoods to find beehives. I could simply tame them en masse right here. Well, if it wasn't for those pesky raptors that decided to jump me just when I got my first one, but at least I had the foresight to place on a bedroll, having fully expected to die via means of 1,000 bee stings. But needless to say that, once the raptors were taken care of, it was very easy for me to sneak up on the bees in full ghillie, caked in bug repellent to feed them a rare flower, marking tame number 14 out of 122. Honestly, this might have been the absolute easiest time I ever had getting bees. The same can unfortunately not be said for Achatina, because where bees, while small, are obnoxiously loud, Achatinas make virtually no noise at all, which made my life very difficult when it came to finding them, which is to say, I found none of them. I decided to take the L for now and went to place my beehives so that they would start producing honey. But don't worry, because I had not given up on my Achatina dreams just yet, because there is an item that could assist me in my goal of finding not just them, but any creature I want: the gene scanner. Okay, wait, first I need to get a few extra levels to be able to build an industrial cooker, because without sweet veggie cakes, it wouldn't matter how many Achatinas I can find, I would not be able to tame any of them. Oh yeah, apparently we have Avis as well, tame number 15 out of 122. Okay, I'm gonna have to tell Brandon to stop taming things off screen. Now, to get a gene scanner, I needed pearls, silica pearls to make electronics, and black pearls to make the scanner itself. And I mean, I could potentially get some silica pearls from the nearby beaver colony, but not only is there no guarantee for pearls to spawn in the first place, having to fight an army of angry furballs every time I need electronics just wasn't a viable option for me. So in a very weird side tangent to our main quest, we needed to get an anglerfish. Long story short, anglerfish are the only creature I am aware of that can harvest pearls more effectively than my scrawny human hands. Bet you didn't think we'd be delving into the ocean in the very first episode, but here we are. Equipped with a scuba set, a few saddles, and not much else really, I decided to jump into the depths in order to find a suitable mount. An ichthy would be the obvious choice, and I did instantly tame a level 25 specimen using cooked mutton, marking tame number 16 out of 122, though the two of us immediately got jumped by a level 50 megalodon. But hey, while in Rome, I decided that a mech would be a bit of an immediate upgrade, so I allowed it to chomp into my dolphin whilst knocking it out. This, however, was not the only mech I decided to set my sights on, because with them being pack animals, having a whole bunch of them would be very beneficial. But since I was
was very limited on taming food, I had no choice but to get rid of some of them. The same cannot be said for this level 150 specimen though. Listen, I know I came here for an angler and this whole thing has been a side mission, but can you resist the temptation of a max level creature? Funnily enough, just as I knocked out the last meg, the first one actually just tamed up, marking tame number 17 out of 122. I was immediately glad I made that decision, as even low level megs are surprisingly useful for early game underwater exploration, and them keeping me safe actually allowed me to find a trench full of black pearls. I'd only need a handful of them for now to make a gene scanner, but it's good to know that I can find loads more should I need them later on. As for the matter of silica pearls, those I would need a lot more of, hence me still looking for an anglerfish. Though considering how bad visibility was down here, I had a hard time telling what's a fish and what's a rock. Something I had no trouble identifying, however, was an alpha tuso. Yeah, I was under the impression that these guys reside a lot deeper down in the ocean, but needless to say that I would stay the hell away from it. Now I did eventually lose my Megalodon bodyguards because I decided to venture a little too far, and let's just say that I valued my own life more than I valued theirs. But that's okay, because even if they were to die, my level 150 mech had tamed up in the meantime, and this guy was the inverse of what I usually get, with melee being its highest stat and food its lowest. Welcome, tame number 18 out of 122. You're going to make for a fine breeder. God, that sounds so wrong when you say it out loud. And believe it or not, but I found its female counterpart also being level 150 not too much later, so obviously I knocked it out. After losing 2 Megalodons and what felt like hours of my life, I finally came across a level 95 anglerfish. Not the sort of level I would usually settle for, but I was having such a hard time getting my hands on these that I decided to just take it for now. The fact that it was located right next to it too, so definitely didn't make this any easier, but thankfully it seemed to be stuck in some sort of ditch. This angler would allow me to make a massive technological leap on the back of all the electronics I'd be able to craft with its pearls. So even though it doesn't look like much, tame number 19 out of 122 was a massive deal to our progression. Though for some reason, it didn't harvest any of the black pearls in the ditch I found earlier. It worked just fine on silica pearls as I found out later, but these guys, yeah, it just straight up didn't want to pick up. Either way, we could finally make a gene scanner, and with that gene scanner I had no trouble finding my Acatina, and thus marking tame number 20 out of 122. For now, I only get 2 of them because I didn't have a lot of veggie cakes yet, but yeah, I threw them in their respective cages, put them on wander, and now they passively produce their version of cementing paste. To make more veggie cakes for more Acatinas in the future, I did fly over to the redwoods to place down some sap taps just so I wouldn't have to rely on getting sap from drops anymore. Now at that point, I was almost done building out our base, meaning I could finally give Brandon the attention he desperately needed, because I, for one, was sick and tired of him taming things off screen without me, so before he went out to do something stupid, I decided to accompany him. And that was just as well, because he found a level 140 Griffin for which he wanted my help, which was desperately needed. You good over there?
It's lost in the forest.
It just flew right by you, man!
Did it?
It did!
Oh, there.
Oh my god,
There it is.
Brandon.
Come here.
You make this look really difficult.
It is.
It's an... No, don't.
No, I hit E to get off the bird.
Oh, no. And it's out. God damn it, Brandon.
I tried to get off the bird.
Why do you make this look so difficult?
I tried to
And it's aggroed on the other guys.
get off the bird.
Try harder.
Now I can't. Now I can't get on the bird.
Oh, wait, it flew in. It flew in.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my god. I'm stuck on my bird.
I'm stuck on my bird.
What the? Stay in there. Wait, no. It was just in a second ago.
The only button to get off the bird is also the button to open the door. That's not my fault.
That's so stupid, man. Haters will say that this Griffin is not getting tamed today, but these haters would be wrong, because after many a headache, it was finally in and eventually also tamed.
Cliff, meet Hermione.
You did not just call your Griffin.
She's a Griffin. And there. Wait, Cliff, don't pick that up. Griffin. Do you get it?
Gate?
Door.
Oh,
Griffin
Griffin,
door.
I hate you. I hate everything about you right now. Wow, she's like extremely mid, to be honest.
I mean, Hermione kind of was.
Well, say hi to Hermione, I guess. Now that both of us had a Griffin to traverse the map, we could finally get to taming the last piece of our puzzle. One more core resource for which we didn't have a dedicated farming creature, and that is flint. I mean, technically the Anki would count, but Brandon really wanted to get a Phasalosuchus because they are infinitely more proficient at achieving the same goal. So the two of us flew around the desert in order to find a couple of high-level specimens, which surprisingly was easier said than done. So far, Ragnarok had absolutely blessed us with a plethora of high-level creatures, but the Phasala? Yeah, finding a decent one took us quite some time. And when we finally did spot one, it ended up being in a less than ideal location.
You could probably see it from there.
Is it the mound in front of us?
Yes, next to the Giga.
Oh, that is extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, we'll be alright.
Okay. Try to steer it towards anywhere but that. Now, Brandon had a lot more confidence in getting this done than I did, and as it turned out, that confidence was not entirely unfounded because he got on that thing in his first attempt. My job now was to fly around and find clusters of metal deposits for him to run into. While there are a lot of regular stones to knock it out, those only give a fraction of a percent per stone, meaning the better my scouting, the sooner we could go home. Once I felt like he had a good grip on the situation, I flew off to look for another Facilla of the opposite gender so that eventually we would be able to breed them. And even though the taming process did take a long time, Brandon managed to knock it out without issue. All I had to do now was feed it some mutton. Alright, number 2 large.
Number 2 large. What?
Why is there no body? Okay, so maybe mutton was not on the menu after all, but that's okay because there are plenty of creatures out in the desert practically begging to be turned into prime meat. The taming effectiveness did not suffer too much from the dietary change. Something that did need changing though was Brandon's attitude. Oh, there we go.
Hermione, say goodbye to your love. You're going in your Pokeball.
Whoa, 46 points into oxygen.
No, don't put it away. I want to name it.
No, get another one.
You get another one.
You get another one.
Okay.
Yeah, so the only name this thing was gonna get were its stats. I did fly back to base in order to get another sheep and also to craft ourselves a walkie-talkie. Okay, allow me to break character for a second. This is a purely cosmetic mod, but it looks really goofy, so if you guys got a better alternative, please let me know in the comments below. And that is basically it. By the time I got back to the desert, Brandon had just about knocked out the second Facilla, this time one of the S-Dino variety, and with that, completed his mission. Ladies and gentlemen, after days of grinding, we finally had a total of 21 out of 122 tames, concluding our search for the most basic creatures necessary to build our empire. We had a gatherer for every resource and as many passively producing animals as we could get on this map. And now that the prep is done, we could finally get around to starting our first army. But that is going to have to wait for next time, and if you don't want to miss me sending 100 bugs to fight a Giga, make sure you subscribe. But if you can't wait that long, what about you check out our main series? In the meantime, 100 days on both the island and Scorched Earth are ready and waiting for you to binge, and you can find the cards on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.